Welcome to Tier 2 of the Cryptids and Mythical Creatures Iceberg. Thanks to the overwhelming support on Tier 1, I'm going to continue and make this a series on the channel. So thank you all for that, because the reaction and the support was really encouraging and welcoming, and it'd pretty much just be a sin for me not to continue and to do the rest of the tiers. So once again, thank you so much. So just like Tier 1, what I will be doing is going over each creature individually and give a brief description of them. So with all that being said, without further ado, let's begin Tier 2, starting with the Loveland Frog. The Loveland Frog, also known as the Loveland Lizard, is said to be a humanoid creature with the face of a frog and is described as standing roughly 4 feet tall with green, leathery skin. According to various legends, the creature was first sighted by a businessman or a traveling salesman driving along an unnamed road late at night in 1955, with some stories specifying the month of May. They were described as having wrinkles on their head instead of hair, lopsided chests, and a wide mouth without lips, like frogs. And a strong odor of alfalfa and almonds was also left behind. For approximately 20 years, there wasn't really any sightings of the Loveland Frog, until March 3rd, 1972, when police were said to have seen a 4-foot-tall, frog-like creature, humanoid, with leathery skin, again near Loveland. It jumped over a rail and into the Little Miami River. And 2 weeks later, Officer Mark Matthews reportedly seen the creature again, this time lying in the road. Matthews attempted to shoot the creature, trying to back up the account of his partner's previous sighting, but the lizard escaped, most likely dying to its injury or from the night's bitter freezing cold. And this officer's description was as follows. The creature was about 3 to 4 feet tall, weighing about 50 to 75 pounds, with leathery skin, possibly wet matted hair on its body that made it look textured, a possible tail, a head and face like a frog or a lizard, and it could leap over the roads. Although the officers in question did not report their encounters, word of it leaked to the news media. But however, in a 2001 interview with Officer Mark Matthews, who, now retired, explained that the incident and the reports were completely blown out of proportion. He stated that it was and is no monster. It was not leathery or had wet matted fur. It was not 3 to 5 feet tall. It did not stand erect. The animal I saw was obviously some type of lizard that someone had as a pet that either got too large for its aquarium, escaped by accident, or they simply got tired of it. It was less than 3 feet in length, ran across the road, and was probably blinded by my headlights. It presented no aggressive action. End quote. Reptilians, also known as lizard people, are supposed reptilian humanoids which play a prominent role in fantasy, science fiction, ufology, and conspiracy theories. Lizard people are cold-blooded humanoid reptiles who have the power to shapeshift into human form. The idea of reptilians was popularized by David Icke, a conspiracy theorist who claims that shape-shifting reptilian aliens control Earth by taking on human form and gaining political power to manipulate human societies. Icke has stated on multiple occasions that many world leaders are possessed by these so-called reptilian aliens. Alien abduction narratives sometimes coincide with the reptilian creatures, as one of the earliest reports of these reptilians was in 1967 when, as a police officer, Herbert Schirmer, who under hypnosis recalled being taken by a UFO by these humanoid beings with slightly reptilian appearance. But of course, with a lot of alien sightings and these reptilian beings, skeptics and pretty much most people with brains know that it's just a hoax. In Navajo culture, a Skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise himself as an animal. This witch, named Yi Nadlushi by the Navajo, translates to "with it he goes on all fours." It's just one of several Navajo witches, and it is considered the most volatile, dangerous, and threatening. And reportedly, it is near impossible to kill. So you are not supposed to talk about skinwalkers, as widespread belief in tribal customs warns that talking about a skinwalker is not only bad luck, but it also calls out to them and makes the probability of them appearing all the more likely. In addition to being able to shapeshift, the skinwalker is also able to control the creatures of the night, such as wolves and owls, to make them do their own bidding. Some are able to call up spirits of the dead and reanimate corpses to attack their enemies. And because of this, the Navajo rarely venture out alone. Skinwalkers' supernatural powers are definitely uncanny, as they can run faster than cars and have the ability to jump very, very high cliffs. They are extremely fast, agile, impossible to catch, and leave tracks that are larger than any animal, and when they have been seen, they have been described to be not fully animal and not fully human. The Skinwalker kills out of greed, anger, revenge, envy, or spite. It robs graves for personal wealth and to collect necessary ingredients for use in their black magic. These witches live on the unexpired lives of their victims, and they must continually kill or perish themselves. Skinwalkers and other witches have been blamed for many unexpected struggles and tragedies throughout the years, including sickness, droughts, poor crops, and sudden deaths. If you want more information on the Skinwalker, you can go ahead and click the card above, as I have a 10-minute video on them. If you want to hear in more detail about the Skinwalker, go ahead and click the card above. Yowie is one of several names for an Australian folklore entity that is reputed to live in the outback. Other names consist of Yahoo, Yowie, Hairy Man, and all of these other names that I cannot pronounce. Yowie type creatures are in Aboriginal Australian legends, particularly seen in the eastern Australian states. There are many depictions of the Yowie, but usually they're described as a hairy ape-like creature standing upright at about 7 feet to 12 feet. The Yowie's feet are much larger than humans, but allegedly, Yowie tracks are inconsistent in toe number and shape, and the description of the Yowie's foot and footprints provided by Yowie witnesses are even more varied than Bigfoot's. Behaviorally, some report that the Yowie is timid and shy, while others report it as aggressive and violent. That's very black and white. Like, which one is it? Like most Bigfoot species, the Yowie is thought to descend from Gigantopithecus blacki, which was an extinct great ape. And while the Giganto Bigfoot theory may be accurate, it is highly unlikely that the Yowie descends from this ape, as creatures from Asia never really made it to Australia and vice versa. Some cryptozoologists also theorize that the Yowie could be a sort of bipedal marsupial as well, due to the fact that there's no primates in Australia within the fossil record. And the first sighting of the Yowie was said to have taken place way back in 1795. Now, while there haven't been many sightings recently, in the mid-1970s there was a bounty put up for the Yowie. The reward was about 200,000 AU. The reward is 200,000 AU to bring in this creature dead or alive, and this reward has still not yet been claimed. The Wendigo originates from Native American legend and is said to be a demonic half-beast as told by the Algonquian peoples along the Atlantic coast of the United States and Canada. They are seen as malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural beings of great spiritual power who were strongly associated with winter, the north, and coldness, as well as famine and starvation. The Wendigo appearance varies on several levels to people. Most of them see them as 10-foot tall demons, gigantic teeth inside twisted mouths, and beady eyes. So now others say that the Wendigo has either no fur or snow white fur, often bloodstained or matted, bloody hair with a grotesque maw filled with sharp yellow fangs. Its hands and feet end in razor sharp talons with twisted lips that are speckled in blood, and their tongues are a disgusting dark blue. According to legends, a Wendigo is created whenever a human resorts to cannibalism to survive. In the past, this occurred more often when Indians and settlers found themselves stranded in the bitter snow and ice of the North Woods. Sometimes stranded for days, any survivors might have felt compelled to resort to cannibalism to survive. Other versions of the legend cite that humans who displayed extreme greed, gluttony, and excess might also be possessed by a Wendigo. Wendigo are said to be cursed to wander the land, eternally seeking to fulfill their voracious appetite for human flesh, and if there is nothing left to eat, then it starves to death. The legend lends its name to disputed modern medical term Wendigo psychosis. Some psychiatrists consider it a syndrome that creates an intense craving for human flesh and a fear of becoming a cannibal. Ironically, the psychosis occurs within the people that live around the Great Lakes of Canada and the United States. And Wendigo psychosis typically develops in the winter in individuals who are isolated in snow for long periods of time. And so the initial symptoms are poor appetite, nausea, and vomiting. Subsequently, the individual develops a delusion of being transformed into a Wendigo monster. And people who have Wendigo psychosis increasingly see others around them as being edible, but at the same time, they have an exaggerated fear of becoming a cannibal. Wendigo sightings flooded for centuries, but the frequency of Wendigo reports decreased sharply in the 20th century as Native Americans came into greater and greater contact with Western ideologies. Now, the most popular media, I believe, for the Wendigo is in Until Dawn. And that's what I know the Wendigo from, and I think that they are portrayed very well. In ancient Arabic mythology, the roc was an ancient bird of prey, reportedly large enough to carry off and eat fully grown elephants. Usually described as white or tawny colored bird, its wingspan reportedly was an amazing 48 feet long, complete with feathers as large as palm leaves. The roc was so big that its eggs were said to be 150 feet in circumference, and according to Arabic tradition, the creature would only lay its eggs on the mountain of Kaf, which is the center of the world. As is the case with a lot of mythical, larger-than-life birds of prey, modern researchers believe that the roc was just an over-exaggerated version of another large bird. Another less accepted theory is that roc was inspired by a bird-like form seen within the sun corona during a total solar eclipse. This total solar eclipse theory is seemingly supported by the fact that roc is described as white in color, which is the color of the sun corona, and is described in Arabian Nights, which is a collection of Middle Eastern folktales, as a bird of enormous size, bulky body, and wide wings flying in the air. And it was that concealed body of the sun and veiled it from the sun, possibly describing a total solar eclipse. Bessie is a name given to the alleged Lake Erie monster, also known as the South Bay Bessie. The first recorded sighting of Bessie was in 1793, and more sightings have occurred within the last 3 decades at a great frequency. Bessie is reported to be snake-like and around 30 to 40 feet in length, at least a foot in diameter, and also a grayish blue color. While shooting at ducks north of Sandusky, Ohio in 1793, the captain of the sloop Felicity startled a large snake-like creature described as more than a rod in length, which is about 16.5 feet. In July of 1817, the crew of Schooner reported a 30 to 40 foot long serpent, dark in color. And later in that year, another crew spotted a similar animal, this time copper colored and 60 feet in length. And also they shot at it with muskets, but had no visible effect. There's a lot more sightings than just the few that I mentioned, and there is a $100,000 reward by the Huron Lagoons Marina for the capture of Bessie, dead or alive, so you better get to hunting, people. A doppelganger is a biologically unrelated look-alike or double of a real person. In folklore, fictions, and mythology, a doppelganger is often portrayed as a ghostly or paranormal phenomenon, and is usually seen as a harbinger of bad luck. And other traditions equate a doppelganger as with an evil twin. The evil twin trope that is so common in mythologies and cultures and literature and art and folklore are all likely tied to the mythology of the doppelganger. According to legend, how one can identify a doppelganger is, well, that they just look like you, or at least very, 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 very similar, and would be you in every way, except that it's just not you. These doubles may at times be seen by others performing actions that the real person would do, often shadowing them, performing the same movements but just after they happen. Many historical reports claim that doppelganger sightings have a premonition of death and tragedy, and these apparitions have other strange paranormal qualities as well. The doppelgangers of folklore cast no shadow and have no reflections in mirror or water. And while doppelgangers themselves allegedly have no reflection, there are many people that have seen their doppelgangers in mirrors replacing their actual reflection, or being next to their actual reflection, either being distorted or just looking like them. Many doppelganger accounts suggest the apparition might attempt to provide advice to the person that they shadow, but just not good advice. This advice can be misleading or vicious and malicious, and they may also attempt to plant like sinister ideas in their victims' heads and cause them great confusion, and they may also try to interact with others as you, which can cause even more confusion. But in all cases, it is considered advisable to never interact with your doppelganger, as it's thought to bring even more bad luck. The Griffin is a legendary creature from Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Persian, Minoan, Greek, and Roman mythology, with the body, tail, and back legs of a lion, the head and wings of an eagle, and sometimes eagle talons for front feet. Since the lion is considered the king of the beasts and the eagle is considered the king of the air, the griffin was thought to be an especially powerful and majestic creature with both royal and divine associations. And in later time periods, the griffin became a sort of symbol of Christ, representing his divine and earthly natures. Griffins were often seen as the guardians of treasure and priceless objects. They were associated with gold and said to guard gold mines, and often appear on tombs as their guardians. Though the first written description of the griffin can be found as early as 7th century BCE, visual depictions of the griffin can be found even earlier. Images of griffins can be found throughout ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, and the Mediterranean, and were part of a broader Near Eastern tradition of composite creatures such as sphinxes and the lamassu. Scholars debate the exact location in which the griffin originated from, but it is typically thought that they either originated in ancient Egypt or Susa, which is modern day Iran. In Japanese folklore, Kitsune are foxes that possess paranormal abilities that increase as they get older and older. In the literal sense, Kitsune is the Japanese word for fox. Foxes are a common subject of Japanese folklore, and in English, Kitsune refers to them in this context. Stories depict legendary foxes as intelligent beings and as possessing paranormal abilities that increase with their age and wisdom. According to the folklore, all foxes have the ability to shapeshift into human form. While some folktales speak of Kitsune employing this ability to trick others, as foxes in folklore often do, other stories portray them as faithful guardians, friends, lovers, and wives. Foxes and humans lived close together in ancient Japan. This companionship gave rise to the legends about the creatures. The more tails a kitsune has, and they can have up to 9, the more older, wiser, and powerful they become. And because of their potential power and influence, some people even make sacrifices to this kitsune as a deity. Foxes or kitsune are found all throughout Japan and are identical to wild foxes found elsewhere in the world apart from their, supernatural paranormal abilities. A ghoul is a demon-like being or monstrous humanoid. The concept originated in pre-Islamic Arabian religion, associated with graveyards and the consumption with human flesh. And in modern fiction, the label is slapped onto a certain type of undead monster. So different from a zombie and different from a ghost. Ghouls who are well fed on human flesh are indistinguishable from normal human beings, but the longer a ghoul goes without human flesh, the more ghoulish it looks, so the less human it looks. A ghoul in the later stages of its starvation will begin to become thin and pale, with veins clearly visible through the skin, and will have long claw-like nails. Ghouls must eat human flesh in order to survive, and a ghoul who denies his hunger for human flesh for too long will begin to suffer the physical effects of starvation, even if they eat other food, and they will suffer a severe mental deterioration. And as the condition grows worse, the ghoul loses any sense of humanity. Ghouls have the ability to take on the appearance of any human that they have eaten, and in some ancient stories claim that the ghouls can turn into hyenas, jackals, or other animals. But so far, the ghoul's ability to turn into animals has yet to be verified. I don't know how that gets verified. And ghouls also tend to be stronger than humans. The myth of the ghoul predates Islam, but because the ghoul is mentioned in the Quran, it is still a source of terror in Arabic culture today. Ghouls tend to live in isolated areas that are apart from the majority of society, and they can frequently be found in desert wastelands, abandoned buildings, and cemeteries. However, contrary to popular belief, a ghoul does not necessarily need to reside in a cemetery. More recent tales of ghouls suggest that they have moved their operations largely underground, and they are said to be frequent in basements, in cellars, in abandoned buildings, and are even rumored to have a network of tunnels underground that they use to travel. They may also have connections to the subway and are thought to eat the remains of subway crash victims before paramedics arrive. A scarecrow is a decoy or a mannequin, often in the shape of a human. Humanoid scarecrows are usually dressed in old clothes and placed in open fields to discourage birds from feeding on newly cast seed and growing crops. Scarecrows are used all around the world by farmers and are a notable symbol of farms and the countryside in popular culture. Scarecrows have been around since the ancient world, and earliest signs of scarecrows being in use actually comes from ancient Greece, as the ancient Greeks created wooden statues of Priapus, who is a fertility god, to stand on their fields to frighten birds. As early as the 8th century, the Japanese had the kuibiko, apologies for the pronunciation, to keep sparrows from the rice. This figure was dressed in old dirty rags and bells and would be burned in the field at the end of the agricultural season. The smoke and smell would keep the birds away, and in some Native American cultures, their scarecrows more so just men sitting on raised platforms, screaming and shouting at birds and animals that get too close to their crops. In Europe, scarecrows have long been tied to the boogeyman, a monster who is often depicted in tattered clothing. To a superstitious agrarian society, not only would the scarecrows keep birds away from the crops, they would also scare and frighten children away from the fields where there might be strange things hiding. In folklore in the British Isles, crows were considered omens of doom and death, and if crows are considered a bad omen, then using a scarecrow to banish them seems to have a metaphysical as well as a practical purpose. The Beast of Bray Road, also known as the Wisconsin werewolf, is a purported humanoid wolf-like creature allegedly witnessed in 1936 near the rural community of Elkhorn, Walworth County, Wisconsin. More recent sightings in the 1980s and the 1990s placed the creature in Racine, Walworth, and Jefferson counties, and those who have seen the beast describe him as eating or hunting and scavenging. It is said to be around 6 feet tall with gray and brown fur. Its face resembles that of a wolf with shiny yellow eyes and pointed ears. Its body, though furry, looks like a muscular man. The creature is said to run and walk on all 4 of its legs or just on its hind leg, and it has been spied on sitting on its haunches or kneeling over like a man. Some people believe it is a werewolf, others believe that it is a Bigfoot, and some believe that it is a yet unidentified species. Though it has never attacked anyone, some witnesses claim that it has acted very aggressively, running at them and jumping on their vehicles. A number of misidentified animal-based theories have been proposed, including that the creature is just simply a gray wolf or a large dog. And while not common in the southern parts of Wisconsin, wolves are occasionally spotted in Walworth County. Nearby areas and others have theorized that the creature may just have been like a bear suffering from mange, and more, including the Native Americans, believe it to be a Wendigo. And it is possible that hoaxes and mass hysteria have caused some falsehoods and sightings of normal creatures to be artificially lumped under the same label, like I said before. The phantom cat, also known as alien big cats or ABCs, are large cats that look something like black panthers, leopards, African lions, or cougars, and many more that have been seen in Britain or just really anywhere else that they're not supposed to be. And so they are alien in the sense that they are not native to that area. And most sightings are refined to the wildest of places, and one most notably being a swamp. Some researchers in the field of cryptozoology use the label alien big cat or phantom cat to refer to any large feline glimpsed in an environment where it is not supposed to be a native animal. Thus, tigers seen in Africa or American lions or Appalachian black panthers would also count as ABCs. And sometimes even smaller cats are labeled within here as well. There are reports of cougars and pumas near Australian cities, and more recently, a series of camera traps have captured jaguars in Oklahoma. And also there are creatures out of the place that are not listed as cryptids, such as bull sharks in Illinois, piranhas in the USA, or even chimpanzees going on killing sprees in Florida. Several dead bodies of the smaller types of ABCs have been turned out to be hybrids between the Scottish wildcat and domestic house cat. And the larger varieties that look like specific species, such as leopards, are just presumed to be escaped exotic pets. These are often kept illegally by their owners, so authorities never know how many of these might be around. Some cryptozoologists believe that Britain has secretly supported a population of leopard, European lynxes, or some other type of wild feline for thousands of years, with a total population of about 30. And this assertion is supported mainly by folklore. And as there was no time in history when people did not see ABCs in Great Britain. And ABC sightings stretch back all the way to prehistory. And before science replaced older explanations, these cats were usually thought to be demons in the form of cats, fairy cats, or shape-shifting witches. A man-eating tree is a vicious predator usually found deep within jungle territory. Although these trees may look harmless, power courses from their roots into their wild branches. They pose a mortal threat to pretty much any warm-blooded creature that even gets close, and instead of opening its arms for shelter, instead it closes those arms as a trap. Explorers have described several species of man-eating trees, each of them taking on a shape of their own. Sometimes they have rich fruit and flowers, sometimes they stand naked and ominous. Sometimes they are the tallest tree for miles around, and sometimes they grow as like short, stocky bushes. The hallmarks of man-eating trees are in its snake-like branches, which may be weaving around in the air even when there's no wind blowing. Other plants may be repelled by the tree, so a small clearing may have formed around it as well. And animals who approach the tree rarely come out alive, and so there are no birds' nests, squirrels, monkeys, or other tree creatures making a playground of its branches. Throughout history, a number of trees have cropped up to menace innocent men. Like, for one example, in the Bible, the tree of knowledge spelled disaster for Adam and Eve when they were tempted to eat its fruit. The first tree to launch an outright attack on a person was the Madagascar tree, described by an explorer in 1874. A German explorer named Karl Lisch traveled to Madagascar, where among other terrifying jungle creatures, he encountered a carnivorous tree that was revered by native tribes. Lisch wrote a report of a woman being sacrificed to this tree, which was a tall monster with serpentine branches that moved lightning fast and strangled victims in the same fashion as an anaconda. And in 1914, another explorer named Chase Osborne corroborated Lisch's story. Although he himself couldn't find the tree, tribal people confirmed its existence. Now, the story of the Madagascar tree was followed up with a flurry of more man-eating tree stories, but they fell out of popularity, along with the explorer narratives in about the 1920s. And most historical accounts of man-eating trees have been reportedly debunked. The only real-world application that I can think of the man-eating tree is a Venus flytrap, but even those, of course, cannot devour an entire human being. Kappa are legendary creatures found in Japanese folklore. Kappas are typically depicted to be roughly humanoid in form and about the size of a small child. Their scaly reptilian skin ranges in color from green to yellow to blue. Kappa are said to have ape-like faces and scraggly green hair. They supposedly inhabit the rivers and ponds of Japan and have various features to aid them in this environment, such as webbed hands and feet. They are sometimes said to smell like fish, and they can, of course, certainly swim like them. Their most notable feature is an indentation on the top of their head that holds water called a sara, and this is regarded as their source of power. This cavity must be full of this sara whenever a Kappa is away from water, and if it spills, the Kappa will be unable to move. So, Japanese folklore states that Kappa can be disabled before they attack just by bowing, as the Kappa would bow back and spill the water, disabling itself. Kappa are usually seen as mischievous and troublemakers and trickster figures. Their actions range from the comparatively minor, such as looking up a woman's kimono if they venture too near to water, to the outright malevolent, such as drowning people and animals, kidnapping children, and at times eating humans. And when this is crazy, and when Kappa attack people, they pull out your intestines out through. This is horrible. Okay, so when Kappas attack people, they pull out your intestines through your anus in order to get a mythical organ called the Shirikadama, which is said to contain the human soul. You heard me right. They're also said to love cucumbers. What the fuck? That went from so disturbing to they love cucumbers. They're said to love cucumbers, and people can sometimes escape an aggressive Kappa by throwing a cucumber in its direction, as it will stop to eat it. And while it's eating, you can just run away. And if it is necessary to bathe in the water that a Kappa lives in, it is possible just to throw a cucumber in the water, and as that will cause a distraction for it, and you can bathe in peace. While they can seem menacing, Kappa can be friendly at times. And while younger Kappa are frequently found in family groups, adult Kappa usually tend to live more solitary lives, and sometimes Kappa, like I said before, are thought to befriend people as well. I love this one. The Fresno Nightcrawler is an unidentified creature caught walking in a Fresno yard on a 2007 surveillance camera, and in 2011 in Yosemite Park it was reported as well. Now, Fresno Nightcrawlers appear to be relatively short creatures, about 1.5 meters tall, with most of their height being made up of legs, as they possess an extremely small upper body. It is hard to find details in the upper body cryptid due to the poor quality of the video, but what you can see is an extremely thin white humanoid with no discernible arms, and a larger specimen appears to have webbing connected from each knee to the torso. And the cryptids appear to have very short, thin, and stilt-like feet. And it is bipedal and walks in a manner in which its legs bend backwards. Like I said before, the first sighting of the Fresno Nightcrawler was in 2007 by a man of the name Jose. After being awoken from his barking dogs, Jose observed the Nightcrawler on his front lawn video surveillance through CCTV. And he woke up his brother to rewatch the footage. And later, his brother reported that he saw like footprints in the yard, but when investigators came to search the area, all evidence was washed away, of course. And after the initial sighting, the original CCTV footage was lost, and so the only remaining footage that we have is the grainy video recording of the monitor. And so like I said before, the creature was also seen in Yosemite, where footage was taken again from what appears to be another security camera. And this time there are two creatures. And this time there were two creatures, one being very small and the other one being normal sized. And the feet of the creatures can be distinctly seen. The aforementioned webbing appears in this video as well. So there isn't really much to go on about the Fresno Nightcrawler. And some of the sightings are actual pairs of white pants being puppeteered. Therefore a hoax, obviously. This is the best cryptid I have seen so far, because I don't know, there's something fascinating about this thing, man. You guys will see the footage. I have put it on screen, but man, what the fuck is this thing? I have a feeling that this was a prank by Jose. Like, this had to have been a prank by Jose and his brother, and the person following in 2011 either was in on it or they replicated it, because there's no way. There's no way. Baba Yaga is a witch from Slavic folklore who lives in a magical hut in the forest and either helps, imprisons, or eats those that she encounters. Baba Yaga is depicted as an enormous old woman who lives in a hut on 4 tall chicken legs that can turn about or relocate on command, and she is often draped over her stove or reclining in the hut across the entire expanse with her large nose touching the ceiling. And when she leaves her house, she rides in a mortar held by a pestle with one hand, while in the other is a broom that she uses to wipe away any of her tracks. She usually leaves her hut in the morning, returning in the evening, and commands a flock of black geese to circle the skies looking for children. In the story, Baba Yaga's black geese, 2 disobedient children, Olga and Sergi, sneak out of their house while their mother is at the market, after she has warned them not to go out while the geese are flying. And so Sergi is snatched up and brought to the Baba Yaga's house for her dinner. Olga is able to save her brother through the use of magical items, and the two learn their lesson about not listening to their mother. So she is seen also as a forest spirit leading hosts of spirits. And so stories of the Baba Yaga have been used in teaching children the importance of reverence for the delicacy of nature and the spirit world. And they were also used by worried parents in an attempt to frighten their children from wandering too far from home. And so Baba Yaga's legacy is derived from several Eastern European cultural groups, and her character often differs depending on who's telling the story. And the outcome of the story, however, usually emphasizes a purity of spirit and polite manners. Baba Yaga can also be a source of guidance when approached correctly, and so when Baba Yaga is approached without good preparation, sincerity, and due respect, she is dangerous. And when too many questions are asked or the wrong questions are asked, she is also dangerous. Only by remaining of pure heart and faith, proper respect for her as one's elder, and loving care of her creatures can the encounter be successful. Devil monkeys are large baboon-like primates that are now being spotted in the wooded areas of Flagstaff, Arizona. Unique breeds of monkeys have been described as being about 3 to 4 feet tall, although some eyewitnesses have sworn that these fiery fiends can reach a height of an excess 7 feet. It seems clear, however, though, those who have encountered these rather large ones with this larger version of the devil monkey are actually just describing a run in with a prototypical like hairy-like humanoid and not the smaller, more primate-like devil monkey. And an eyewitness account noticed that her dog was acting very agitated and scary when they were on a hike through Mount Eldon Forest Trail. And this is when she noticed creatures scurrying throughout the rocks. And she described them as 4 to 5 feet tall, very quick and very agile. And there have also been other sightings in other states such as New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. Unlike the legendary Bigfoot or Yeti, these creatures have been described as shaggy, canine-faced baboon-like creatures with powerful, almost kangaroo-like legs, a trait that they share with South America's notorious goat sucker, the chupacabra. And other distinguishing traits the devil monkeys have is 3-toed, razor-clawed feet, tiny pointed ears, and often a long bushy tail. Devil monkeys are said to have horrible screaming sounds and wild behavior, attacking people on sight and causing widespread panic. And this makes them an entirely different beast from most other primate cryptids, in that they actively seek out humans and are considered a major threat. They may also sport unusual traits such as red glowing eyes, abnormal size and incredible strength, speed, and even ghostly traits, such as causing mist or shadows to manifest wherever they go. But for the most part, they are seen as a kind of vicious, wild man rather than a truly supernatural entity. And due to the wild appearance, the heightened aggression, and loud noises, skeptics believe that the devil monkeys are just escaped baboons or similar monkey species that have managed to breed in the wild, much as some big cats have done in other parts of the world, kind of like the aforementioned ABCs. And as is common with most paranormal events, tales of devil monkeys are not as common as they used to be, and little evidence has surfaced on their existence. And due to the widespread access of cameras via phones and other devices, many skeptics see the lack of evidence as a sign of such stories being false. Just like I mentioned in the last video for about 4 minutes on Bigfoot, how there isn't any recordings or evidence of, there isn't any recording or clear pictures of Bigfoot. It's the same thing we can go with devil monkeys and pretty much anything else on the list besides the Fresno Nightcrawler, apparently, because there's no pictures or videos of them. They're just, you can honestly just chalk them up as tall tales. And like I said in the last video, if there's 4K, 2K, 1K, just 1080p video cameras out there just on your phones from 10 years ago, why isn't there one picture or video of these creatures? And specifically, we're talking about devil monkeys. Why isn't there a single picture or video or anything of the devil monkey? You know what I mean? You understand me. The Mongolian deathworm is a creature alleged to exist in the Gobi Desert. It has been described by many to be from 2 to 7 feet long and have the ability to spit out a corrosive yellow saliva and to generate blasts of electricity. But however, this latter power is thought to be folkloric by the Gobi nomads. Now, Mongolian nomads believe the giant worm covers its prey with an acidic substance that turns everything into a corroded yellow color. Legend says that the creature begins to attack, it raises half its body out of the sand and starts to inflate until it explodes, releasing the lethal poison all over the unfortunate victim. The poison is so venomous that the prey dies immediately, and livestock and human beings are said to be its main prey. And because Mongolia had been under Soviet control until 1990, very little was known about the deathworm in the West. And so in recent years, investigators have been looking for evidence of this creature's existence. And Ivan Mackerel, one of the leading Loch Ness Monster detectives, studied the region and interviewed an amassed amount of Mongolian people about the worm. And due to sheer volume of the sightings and strange deaths, he came to the conclusion that the deathworm is more than just a legend. Nobody is entirely certain as to what the worm actually is, and experts are certain that it is not a real worm because the Gobi Desert is too hot of an area for annelids to survive, and some have suggested that it might be a skink but they have little legs and scaly skin, whereas witness accounts specify the worm is limbless and smooth-bodied. The most probable explanation is that the death worm is a new type of amphisbaenia, which is a type of worm lizard that burrows under the ground. And although native Mongolian people are convinced of the Mongolian death worm, it will take many more years of research to solidify and satisfy the rest of the world's scientific community. The Flatwoods Monster is a cryptid sighted in the forests of Flatwoods, West Virginia, and Frametown, West Virginia, respectively, to be of extraterrestrial nature. The entity was initially reported as being about 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide, and it appeared to be in some sort of robotic suit or spacecraft rather than an organic being. It had a cowl in the shape of an ace of spades behind a red round head. Set in the head were two eyes, described as portholes, glowing green-orange and the size of 50-cent coin. The body was a metallic armored structure lined with thick vertical pipes. Discrepancies exist in the actual color of the armor, some claiming it to be black while others say it's green. And the existence of arms is a similar manner, as most state the monster was armless, while others claim that it possessed small toy-like arms. At 7:15 p.m. on September 12th of 1952, two brothers, Edward and Fred May, and their friend Tommy Heyer, said that they saw a bright object cross the sky and land on the property of local farmer G. Bailey Fisher. The boys went to the home of Kathleen May, where they told their story. May, accompanied by three boys, local children Neil Nunley and Ronnie Shaver, and West Virginia National Guardsman Eugene Lemon. They all went to the Fisher farm in an effort to locate whatever it was that the boys had said that they had seen. The group reached the top of a hill, where Nunley said that they had saw a pulsing red light. Lemon said he had aimed a flashlight in that direction and momentarily saw a tall, man-like figure with a round, red face surrounded by a pointed, hood-like shape. May described the figure as having small, claw-like hands, clothing like fold, and a head that resembled an ace of spades. And according to the story, when the figure made a hissing sound and glided toward the group, Lemon screamed and dropped his flashlight, causing the group to run away. The group said that they had smelled a pungent mist, and some later said that they were nauseated. The local sheriff and a deputy had been investigating reports of crashed aircraft in the area. They searched the site for the reported monster, but saw, heard, and smelled nothing. According to Barker's account, the next day, A. Lee Stewart Jr. claimed to have discovered skid marks in the field and an odd gummy deposit, which were subsequently attributed to UFO enthusiast groups as evidence of a saucer landing. But sadly, the day after the Flatwoods incident, a couple taking a leisurely drive through the mountains of Frametown, West Virginia, at dusk were met with a horrifying experience similar to the Flatwoods experience, in which their car came to a sudden stop and refused to start again. Shortly thereafter, a putrid sulfuric odor filled the air. The couple circling the vehicle in hopes of spotting the culprit spotted something far worse than they could have imagined. It was similar to the Flatwoods Monster, but from the waist up, it was a reptilian humanoid. This creature, thought to be the same creature sighted in Flatwoods, is known as the Frametown Monster. The Thunderbird is a legendary creature in certain North American indigenous cultures. Described as a supernatural being, the enormous bird was a symbol of power and strength that protected humans from evil spirits. It was called the Thunderbird because the flapping of its wings sounded like thunder and lightning would shoot out of its eyes. The Thunderbirds brought rain and storms, which could be good or bad. Good when the rain was needed, or bad when the rain came with destructive strong winds, floods, and fires caused by the lightning. The bird was said to be so large that legends tell it picking up whales with its talon. They were said to have bright and colorful feathers with sharp teeth and claws, and were said to live in the clouds high above the tallest mountain. And various tribes have different oral traditions about the magical Thunderbird, which they both highly respected and feared. Thunderbirds originated from Native American legends. Across many North American indigenous cultures, the Thunderbird carries many of the same attributes. It is described as a large bird capable of creating storms and thundering while it flies, and everything else that I had previously mentioned. But there have also been accounts of men and women changing into Thunderbirds by putting on a large cloak of its feathers and pulling down its face, revealing the head of the Thunderbird. Thunderbirds usually act as messengers for the higher powers of nature. They have been known to occasionally come down to Earth during storms, turning into men and women, and living among humankind. And Native American tribes and families have been known to have ancestors that were Thunderbirds, and that they rarely joke around, and this is more of a serious matter. A globster or blob is an unidentified organic mass that washes up on the shoreline of an ocean or other body of water. A globster is distinguished from a normal beached carcass by being hard to identify, at least by initial untrained observers, and by creating controversy as to its identity. The term was coined by Ivan T. Sanderson in 1962 to describe the Tasmanian carcass of 1960, which was said to have no visible eyes, no defined head, and no apparent bone structure. Globsters may present such a puzzling appearance that their nature remains controversial even after being officially observed and identified by scientists. Some globsters lack bones or other recognizable structures, while others may have bones, tentacles, flippers, eyes, or other features that can help narrow down the possible species. In the past, they were often described as sea monsters, and myths and legends about such monsters may often have started with the appearance of a globster, and so most globsters are frequently studied in the field of cryptozoology. Many globsters have initially been described as gigantic octopi, although they later turned out to be the decayed carcasses of whales or large sharks. And as with the Chilean blob of 2003, many are masses of whale blubber released from decaying whales. Others, initially thought to be dead plesiosaur carcasses, later turned out to be the decayed carcass of basking sharks. Others remain unexplained. Some globsters have only been examined after they had been decomposed too much to be used as evidence for a new species, or have been destroyed, as happened with the famous Cadborosaurus carcass found in 1937. However, Canadian scientists did in fact perform a DNA analysis of the Newfoundland blob that indicated the tissue was just from a sperm whale. In the resulting paper, the authors point out a number of superficial similarities between the Newfoundland blob and other famous globsters, concluding a similar origin for these globsters is likely, and analysis of other globsters have yielded similar results. This one's just funny just because it has squatch at the end. The Batsquatch is a flying cryptid that was allegedly seen near Mount St. Helens in the 1980s. It resembles a flying primate similar to the ahul and the orang-bati. A witness allegedly took pictures of this creature, but however, these pictures have yet to be analyzed and thus cannot prove the creature's existence. Before I continue, this is what I like to hear. Fuck Bigfoot, fuck the Sasquatch. How about we talk about the Batsquatch instead? Because apparently there's pictures of it, and not just falsified videos and no other videos and pictures of it. Let me see these ones, just to see if it's real or not, because at least this was captured on camera. Anyways, this creature was said to have yellow eyes, a dog-like muzzle, blue fur, sharp teeth, bird-like feet, and leathery bat-like wings that span up to 50 feet. In addition, the Batsquatch was said to be about 9 feet tall and has the ability to affect car engines. In April 1994, Brian Canfield was driving in Washington's Pierce County when his truck suddenly died. Canfield said a large creature landed in front of him. He said it was human-like, 9 feet tall, with bat-like wings, and also sported a coat of blue fur. Ever since then, it has not been seen, and skeptics have dismissed it as a hoax. But a possible second sighting in 2009, reported near Mount Shasta in California, several hikers witnessed a huge creature with leathery wings fly out of a crevice in the mountain. At first, an eyewitness described the creature as having a head similar to a pterodactyl. However, upon reconsideration, the witness claimed it was more akin to a flying foxbird, to a flying fox bat. Now, there isn't much about the Batsquatch, but unlike the Sasquatch, at least there's apparent pictures of it. That's what I like to hear. I love to hear evidence. pictures are evidence. Umibōzu is a paranormal phenomenon from Japanese folklore. Little is known of the origin of the Umibōzu, but it is a sea spirit and as such has multiple sightings throughout Japan. Normally, Umibōzu appears to sailors on calm seas, which quickly turn thunderous. It either breaks the ship on emergence or it demands a bucket or barrel from the sailors and proceeds to drown them. The only safe way to escape a Umibōzu is to give it a bottomless barrel and sail away while it is confused. They appear and disappear in oceans often at night, and it is thought that they would suddenly appear on what was a previously calm sea surface as a giant black botsu head and destroy ships. They are often a few meters to a few tens of meters in length, so they are seen as quite large, but also in tails are relatively small. Umibōzu is shown to have a shaved, smooth head and appears to be jet black, but it also looks like a mix between a dog and possibly a sea serpent and an octopus. Its arms end in what resembles a hand made up of 5 tentacle-like appendages constituting a hand. Also has a longer body with fins running down its spine as the lower body disappears underwater. Once again, obscuring our view as to what its lower body looks like, continuing the mystery. Similar to most legends, the eyes are often open wide and it is smiling. Fucking creepy. There are 2 tentacle-like appendages coming from its face, which could be feelers of some sort as well. And finally, the presence or sighting of a Umibōzu is very widespread in Japanese folklore, and the appearance of one is not an uncommon occurrence. Air rods, also called flying rods, are something like crop circles in which even skeptics acknowledge their existence. The only question really is what they are. Air rods have never been seen with the naked eye, but are only picked up in cameras and cell phones throughout the world. Air rods were discovered in the 1990s, and people found that some film of all types, ranging from home videos to movies seen at the theater, had odd disturbances that looked something like blurry rods that were mostly transparent, occasionally whitish in color. Most of these disturbances were fast moving and barely visible to the eye, and these rods show up best against large areas of the same color, such as the sky. The people who have examined for anomalies of this sort started calling what they did sky fishing, because this usually started by looking at where areas of the sky were visible in the film. And what they found is that these rods were extremely widespread. Countless films had them lurking almost imperceptibly in corners, including old television shows, movies, films of sporting events, and almost everything imaginable. There were simply too many samples for them to study them all, running into tens and tens of thousands of them. There were also air rods visible in photographs, but these were hardly studied at all for reasons that I will explain very shortly. Close study of air rod film revealed a number of very interesting features. As these rods zoomed, they displayed all the features of three-dimensional object. In other words, there were not 2D blotches on the film itself, but something out of their environment that was actually being filmed on accident. This three-dimensional nature of air rods has been proven without a doubt by the types of measurements and tests that only professionals can do. Careful measurements showed that most rods were between 4 inches and 3 feet long, and they seemed like uniform cylinders without any difference between the head end and tail end, with pairs of appendages along the length of the cylinder. In some air rods, these appendages look like fins that vibrate rapidly along the entire length of the cylinder in undulating waves. Other rods have appendages that look more like very rapidly beating bee wings. Most of the time, rods are blurry, making them inconspicuous. A rare few are very white in color, sometimes an even solid white. The cylinder part often resembles an out of focus hair on the camera lens, but the appendages, along with the three-dimensional turnings and motion, mean that the genuine air rods cannot possibly be hairs on the camera lens. In addition to their three-dimensional character, these air rods seem to act in intelligent ways. Sometimes several rods followed each other and sometimes seemed to play with each other in the manner that butterflies might play. Rods sometimes followed people. They never went through other objects. They always went around them, even when this meant deviating from the path they had been on before. This seemed to indicate that they could not pass through solid objects and that they might be alive. This fad has produced a mountain of recent photos and film, suspiciously the widest air rods that are easy to see showing up much more frequently in these pictures. Also, since air rods are blurry, a great number of rather ordinary things that probably are random anomalies of film developing or hairs on the camera lens have been identified as air rods by amateurs. Air rods do look like they vibrate at a very high rate, leaving them a blurry character, but this phenomenon is like that of quickly rotating blades in a fan. As the blades speed up, they become a blur and then gradually become transparent, but you can still see them. It might be possible for the air rods to be near invisible if they are made of a number of thin, transparent surfaces that vibrate or beat the air very quickly. If this is what air rods are made out of, they are probably just some sort of insect of some kind. They would be a new species that no one has ever reported before, and even so, it does seem suspicious that people cannot see them, but the camera can. And even though they are transparent, quick moving, and blurry, it seems that people ought to be able to see them without the use of camera. This is one of my favorite on the entire iceberg, even if it could be debunked really easily, like a Sasquatch. It is just so intriguing and very interesting to listen about, to read about, and just to learn about. A Ningen is a cryptid that is located in the oceans of Antarctica and southern Asia. It has several appearances, is at least 20 to 30 meters long, and has pale white skin. Eyewitnesses describe them having a human-like shape, often with legs, arms, and even 5-fingered hands. Sometimes they are described as having fins or a large mermaid-like tail instead of legs or even tentacles. The only visible or identifiable facial features are the eyes and mouth. According to one account, the crew members on deck observed what they initially thought was a foreign submarine. When they approached, however, it became clear the irregular shape of the thing that it was not man-made, but was alive. The creature quickly, of course, disappeared underwater. These beasts have supposedly been seen in the Pacific, Antarctic, and Atlantic Ocean, and are described as being extraordinarily large with a whitish complexion. Many observers have also reported that these animals have no distinct facial features except for the two huge eyes and a mouth like slit. According to most accounts, these creatures are primarily nocturnal and tend to thrive in frigid Arctic water. Initial reports of these marine animals were said to have emanated from the tail end of the 20th century, which is strange considering how many centuries mariners have been traversing with an area with not very much mention of these bizarre and purportedly gigantic beasts. Ningen sightings seem to occur more frequently at night because they're nocturnal, making them all the more difficult to photograph. In still images, the sea cryptids mostly just look like ice, though it is said that their smooth human skin can be seen when the image is enlarged. In any case, no convincing photographs have been made public, either because they do not exist or because some argue the government does not want to invite undue scrutiny and tarnish the scientific reputation of the whale research program. And the Ningen have been misidentified for a long time, and these misidentifications include sharks, whales, and squids, new species of giant manta rays, misidentified iceberg, and also unidentified subspecies of beluga whales. And there have been plenty more misidentifications of the Ningen in history. And there have been plenty more misidentifications of the Ningen throughout history. And with all that being said, thank you for watching and thank you for listening. That was the conclusion of Tier 2 of the Cryptids and Mythical Creatures Iceberg. I really hope you enjoyed Part 2, and I really hope that you're looking forward to Tier 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10, because this series is going to be so great. Thanks to all of you who encouraged the creation of these videos. Let me know what your favorite cryptid, or mythical creature, or both, are on this entire tier. Mine so far on tier 2 have to be air rods 100%. Globsters mainly for the name, if I'm being completely honest. Doppelgängers and Skinwalkers, and one more would be the Wendigo. And like I said, yeah, just let me know which ones were your favorite down below. And before we end this video, I would just like to say one thing. Thank you. Thank you all for the amass amount of views and subscriptions to the channel recently. Because recently, 2 weeks ago, before I posted tier 1 of the Cryptids and Mythical Creatures Iceberg, I had about 90 subscribers, and my execution toward the measured video had less than 900 views. That video has now over 40,000 views, and I have over 970 subscribers, and I just want to say thank you, because without your encouragement and without the reaction from you guys, I probably wouldn't be still continuing to do videos. But since you guys watch it and interact with it and like the videos, it makes me want to do them more, and it makes me enjoy it more. I love doing it, even though I can't do it very often. As you can tell, it took me 2 weeks to make this video. It still is it's a very, very great time, and it's even better when the videos get a great reception. Even if they don't get the 40,000 views the execution method has, even 50 views, 90 views is enough to keep me going. And I just want to say thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate everybody that is on here and enjoying, even if it's just not for me, it's just for the content that I create. Thank you, and I appreciate you for clicking on to the videos and watching, and like I said, interacting with them, because I love reading the comments, good or bad. I like the good ones more, of course. I delete a lot of the bad ones because nobody likes negativity. We like to be positive around here. And so if you ever have a comment that's kind of negative and not really constructive criticism, just don't send it out, because it's gonna get deleted anyway, and you can just keep that to yourself, because nobody wants the negativity. But I do encourage you to comment anything, even if it's constructive criticism on the video, the format, how I make the video. If I said something wrong in the video, just correct me. Just don't be a dick about it. That's all I ask. And thank you for everyone that does correct me, because a lot of the time I'm learning as well, so the information may be misleading or may be incorrect, and so without you guys helping, I may be falsifying information within the video. So thank you all for that as well. Just big thank you to everybody and everyone that interacts and communicates and likes the videos, comments on the videos, everything just enjoys. Thank you so fucking much. Yeah, with all that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a splendid day and a splendid night. Spend the whistle in the woods. It's been my pleasure. Thank you, and goodbye.